So today on the Asset Mindset podcast, I'm honored to have a friend and a colleague, and I can call him an Asset Mindset teammate, Davi Millsap,
Yeah.
professional motocross, supercross, like incredible human being. What he's doing now, transitioning over into the Millsap mindset, sharing mentorship with the next generation of riders. He's doing amazing things. I actually was privileged to do an event with him one time in Lake Havasu. It was amazing. And we just bonded and connected because even though he's not SF, he does have the asset mindset. So welcome, Davy. Why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Um, I mean, man, I started riding dirt bikes when I was 3. Um, Turned pro when I was 15. Missed the first race because you have to be 16. So technically, I guess I was 16 when I had my first pro race. Was pro for 15 years. Um, Had a head injury, and ended my career just a year short. And then I sat for a few years trying to get my health back together, trying to get my brain back together, who I was. And then I got a phone call to start training riders in the industry that are trying to become somebody. And that kind of tumbleweeded into working with them on the dirt bike, off the dirt bike, and then the mental side of things as well, which is where Millsap's mindset was born. Um, it's for me, riding dirt bikes is one of the most physically demanding sports in the world. I'm 36 surgeries deep, and I'm 37 years old. Um, you know, I don't notice how much pain I'm in every day. I don't really care. I have to wake up and do what I have to do. Same with my guys. They have to go through dislocated shoulders. They have to ride through broken bones. They have to ride through, bum knees and, you know, one guy this year ripped his intestines in half and broke his ribs, broke his arm, and he's been back for a month and a half now riding. So it's like you have to deal with these things. You have to go through them, and you have to mentally overcome all the obstacles. Because I don't care who you are, I don't care how bad of a dude you are. When you get on the dirt bike, you have a chance of hitting the ground. You have a chance of dying. You have a chance of going out of there in an ambulance. So you have to overcome that, because the more you think about it, the more you fear it, the more likely it is to happen. Um, so that's kind of where my whole journey has gone, from amateur to pro to trainer to mental side of things with the guys with Millsap's mindset, and and then doing my first event with you and here in Havasu. And yeah, I was a little nervous, obviously, but uh, man, it's an enjoyment for me to watch the progress of all the guys that I work with. I have a cyclist that messages me, weekly, asking for advice now. So it's cool.
Oh, that's super cool. And one of the things I want to commend you and everybody in your sport, like you guys are badasses. Like everybody's like, oh, Green Berets, Navy SEALs and all
Yeah.
that. Like, yeah, we beat our bodies up and we
Yeah.
risk some things and we do. But man, you guys, I've seen some of them wipeouts and
Yeah.
things that I'm like, whoo. And then, you get a cast on, you do whatever, and you're back right out there. And
Yeah.
bull riders, same thing, man. PBR guys, you guys are real tough motherfuckers, to be blunt. Like
I,
you
I
are.
mean,
So,
I appreciate it. It's, you just grow up doing it. Like, I broke my ankle in 5 spots, and I broke both wrists when I was, God, I had to have been 9 years old. 9 or 10 years old. I did that. Maybe even earlier. I may have even been 8, but I still raced 2 days later with 2 broken wrists and a broken ankle in 5 spots. And I didn't finish. Some kid took me out, and my adrenaline went away. So then, like, all the pain came on.
yeah.
But it's one of those things where it doesn't matter how bad you're hurt. It doesn't matter where you're at. The only thing that matters is, when can I ride again? When can I get back on that bike? How long do I have to wait? And with, the doctor says, oh, 6 months, it's usually 4. So, it's one of those things that the patience in this industry doesn't exist. And it also, I think, is a curse too, because you come back and you're not prepared. You come back and maybe you're not as ready as you thought you were. But
Mm,
um, it's just how we are, man. It's how we're raised. It's just life.
yeah. So let's talk about some of that drive and
Yeah.
that passion. How do we think we can help people that are listening right now, our listeners, to be able to tap into some of that drive that you've had and other people that you're coaching to go after the dreams or to, want to cross that finish line first or whatever that goal is they have?
I mean, I think the first thing is to get rid of the fear, and I think the fear is the biggest thing that holds people back from chasing their dream or going after their dream. They'll always want it. They'll always, I have this dream, I have this goal, I want to reach it, but it's always until they figure out what it takes to actually get there. And whether that be having to face their fears or overcome obstacles that are scary, whether it be, taking risk or, like for us, getting over the injuries, or there's a big jump that we don't want to do, but we know if we do it, we're going to get our goal of being in the front, and the same goes for any business or, anything that any kind of athlete. It's, you have fears. Everyone has fears, there's no way around that, but overcoming the fear and pushing through it and facing the fear head on, I feel like is probably one of the biggest things all around that can get you through to the next step and give you that drive. Because once you go through that first one, once you face that obstacle that you were scared to death of facing, you're like, wow, holy shit, like that was sick, like time to go, and then from there on out, you're hitting the fear, you're facing the fear, and you're diving into it, because you already know what it's like. You already have that confidence, you already have that boost of energy from facing the first one. Now the next one and the next one and the next one, you're looking forward to them. That's how it always kind of was for me. And because motivation is great. Everyone has motivation. I want to be ripped. I want to be, an Olympian. I want to be this, I want to be that. But again, it's cliche, but when that 4 o'clock alarm goes off or that 5 o'clock alarm goes off and you're like, whew, I don't know, man, my bed's comfy right now. Like that's where discipline comes in. And unfortunately, when it comes to having that drive, the discipline, you have to have it. Discipline isn't something that you have. It's made, it's created, it's earned. It's not something that here's your discipline. I wish it worked that way.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah, it would make coaching so much easier if you could just be like, here's your, here's your discipline in this little brown paper baggie. Take that, eat it twice a day. You're good to go.
And you're good to go. You'll have motivation and you'll have discipline, and they will, they will feed off each other. You'll be great. No. You have the motivation in the world, but if you don't have discipline, motivation means nothing.
Yeah. Well, that's the concept I talk about in my book with the asset mindset is, discipline is the glue that holds your dream together.
Yep.
You want to make it happen and you're building it. Well, if you don't have discipline, you're not going to be able to glue the pieces together. You got to have discipline. So important. And I love it. And with you talking about facing fear and hitting the jumps or doing whatever, and even like guys like us jumping out of planes, doing your first jump or whatever it may be, your first time outside the wire or whatnot. Once you do it, I see you were talking the way that you had that belief now. Like you conquered that first jump or whatever. You're like, wow, I can do it. I believe. So let's talk about the power in believing in yourself that you can do things and how that changes the dynamic in whatever it is you're trying to accomplish.
I mean, obviously, being a badass as you are, like you had to start from nothing to become something. And there's no way around. I mean, you can sit here and you tower me. You are a big dude. And you made me feel like a small little guy for the first time in a long time. But at the end of the day, like you walk around like people are like, oh, dude, like he must be a badass. But I guarantee you, your first day that you got into whatever you were getting into with the Green Berets or not, I don't care who you are. You're gonna have nerves. You're gonna have fear. You're gonna have something, And then you go and do your stuff. You succeed. The next day you show up, you have that much more. You do that much better, and you keep doing it, and you do it, and then you're gonna do a little bit more. But guess what? By day 5 or day 6, you are your stature. You are that dude. You're a badass mofo. Like it's just who you are. And I feel like that's kind of how the belief system works, especially for dirt bikes and just anything, is you have to take that first step. And once you overcome the fear, now you have the belief of being able to do what you thought you couldn't do, and going through the scenarios of what if I don't, it's like, if you can flip that to, I'm going to do this. And you start believing in yourself, because you may talk about it. You may be a big talker, but subconsciously deep down, you have that doubt. There is always that doubt subconsciously. So it's going to overpower no matter how much of this you want to do, your subconscious is always going to win. And so for me, like if you're going to talk, you have to then pursue it, because you're going to then teach your subconscious that you are in charge. You know, you're going to do it, and you're going to believe. It just takes, I feel like it only takes one or two, maybe three things for you to actually do to fully believe. You know, like the kids I work with right now, you know, he's at the track ride right now. He's sending me videos of him doing jumps that he's never done before. And he's like, I'm back. You know, it's like, you never went anywhere. But the fact that you stopped believing in yourself, now you're starting to do things that how you used to do them. Now you're getting that belief system back. You know, it's just going out of his comfort zone a little bit, to where once you do that, dude, sky's the limit. You know, your comfort zone is your death. It's the death of you. It's the death of your business. It's death of anything. Like, you're never going to go anywhere. So that's kind of like the whole belief thing. I feel like the belief, when you say belief, you're juggling, or you're bunching all of it in one big box, because belief, I think, is the most powerful one that you can do. Because if you believe in yourself, then anything's possible. But you actually have to make the conscious decision to rule your subconscious to push through it.
Yeah, and that's all part of mindset. You have to get in that mindset.
Yep,
you need
100%.
to learn to make that shift.
Yep.
So I'm going to ask you, did you have that shift just innately, like in your head, or was there like a hard moment in your life where you realized, like, I need to make this shift or this change, or I'm not going to be able to do what I want to do?
That's a tough question. That's a loaded question. So like as an amateur, I was probably one of the most, not the most, one of the most, I would say, winningest amateurs to ever race a dirt bike. It came easy. It was easy. It was, you know, winning races, going to the track, doing the motos, doing the little workouts that we had to do. You know, because we had a motorhome and trailer that we traveled the country with, and my mom had a pull-up and dip bar built onto the trailer. We had jump ropes, punching bag. We had to do all that every morning, every night when we were done. It did not matter. If we were traveling, we were driving somewhere, wherever we stopped, we had to go put the pull-up bar and dip bar, and we had to do it all. It didn't matter. So like all that stuff came so easy. But as soon as you go pro and you kind of have that humbled moment, you know, because you're going into big dogs, and you're going into guys that that been there and are really, really fast, and now everyone's kind of more on an equal bike, and it's a whole nother ball game. So at that moment, it's like, okay, you got to make that shift to start believing in yourself again. You know, like they humbled you big time, and they brought you down to a level that you've never been to. So now how do you claw your way back out of it? And for me, it was making that switch of, I don't care what they did to me. Like, I'm coming out of it, and I'm going to be back on top. And whatever I have to do, we'll do it. My career was a roller coaster of that, whether believe or not believe, belief or not belief.
It's like life, right?
It's like life, you know. But I feel like that's what makes it so good for me to work with these young kids, because I've been through it all. You know, I was one of the best, and I was one of the fastest. I was one of the most talented, but I was also lazy, and I really wasn't ever in great shape, except for a few years of my career where I won a championship, got runner up twice in championships in the big class, got third in 1 year. Like, I mean, I have, was it over 35 podiums? Like, regardless, you know, I'm able to relay that to them and show them, hey, look, dude, like, I thought my career was going to last forever, but it doesn't, you know? And so that mind switch for me now, I feel like is stronger than it was when I was racing. And I even tell my wife all the time, like, I wish I had this mindset now when I was racing, because I think my career would have been way different. But all in all, you know, it's better late than never.
Yeah, and that's part of the growth process. And I'll tell you, you know, professional athletes like you, guys that are professional soldiers, warriors, you know, like, we get stuck in thinking like, this is our life, and it's never going to end. Like, I'm in the military, this is my job, this is who I am, this is what I do. And then you get towards retirement, and you're like, oh shit, what's next? Like, what's my next mission? Who's going to give me orders? Or when's my next race? You know, what's the schedule? Like, what? And that's a challenge for people making that transition. So let's talk about transitions then, because you just went through it. I've
Yep.
transitioned. How do people say they're at that spot in their life where they're going from a career or one thing, or they just want to transition to something new? How do they face or take on that transition with a positive mental attitude?
That, I mean, it for me it was finding passion in what I was getting myself into. You know, if I didn't have passion for it, if I wasn't passionate about it, then it would have been just another, it's not 9 to 5, but it would have just been, let's say 9 to 5. It would have been something that didn't do anything for me. And I was going to be miserable. I was probably going to be grumpy. I was probably going to be angry. And I was going to be, bummed, 4 or 5 years down the road where, doing what I'm doing now, transitioning from being a professional motocross racer to now a trainer of professional and amateur guys, it's not what I wanted to do. It wasn't on my list of things that I was going to ever do. Um, but when I got the phone call and I started doing it, I'm like, you know what? Like, I like this. Like, I can do this, and I started going into where I found passion in it. And once I found passion in it, it became a second career. It was one of those things that became life. It gave me a purpose. So if people are going to transition from one place to another or one job to another job, obviously they're willing to leave the one job because one, they're retired, or two, they're over it. So the passion's gone. But you got to make sure you find that passion and whatever that you're going to do so you can actually give it everything you have. Because if you're not willing to give everything you have or put everything you have into it, then you're only giving it, you're going to be half-assed and everything. Those are the results you're going to get. You're going to get half-assed results back. That's kind of where me putting 100% into everything is because I have passion for it.
I love that. That's powerful stuff right
Yep.
there, brother. I mean, passion and purpose.
Yep.
You need to have passion and purpose. If you
100%.
don't have passion and purpose in your life, you're just lost or you're just droning, as we say in the
Yep.
middle. You're just going through the motions. Some people call them sheeple, whatever. But if you want to
Yep.
be happy, like you have to have passion and purpose. And I love that you brought that up.
Yeah, I mean, for 3 years after my retirement, when I hit my head, I had my brain injury. For 3 years I sat on the couch, did nothing besides drive probably my wife nuts. Um, but it's one of those things that, sorry, my headphones falling apart. It's one of those things that, for 3 years, I literally did absolutely nothing, and I was trying to deal with the trauma of my head, and because I was in a bad place, a really really bad place, and I mean, I'm gonna just be honest. I was angry, I was mad, I was sad, I was suicidal, I was all these things, but and I could see myself doing. I just didn't know why I was doing it. But then, like, you start doing research of brain injuries and the part of the brain that I hit would be the frontal lobe. That controls all my emotions. And I was going through like a whirlwind of emotions all day, every day for 3 years. But I also wasn't doing anything to keep my mind occupied to where I could fight through it a little bit easier. And then, like I said, once I got that phone call, I was nervous because of how I was emotionally, and it was a roller coaster. But once I'm like, you know what, like, yeah, like, I like this, like, this is it, like, my whole brain shifted, and it became to where I could handle things, and I became who I was before, which is the happy-go-lucky Davy, and more on like the purpose and the passion was back. I had something to. I have beautiful kids. I have a beautiful wife. So yes, 100%, I live for them all day long. But you also have to have something for yourself and for me. And that to me is right now, it's my thing. Like, I love it. I have passion for it. I have drive for it. And I wake up every day and I have a purpose. I have something that I have to do. And without that, like, dude, I was struggling for little, like I said, little 3 years. I was struggling heavy, and it was to the point to where I didn't really know what I wanted to do anymore. And this, like you said, the passion and the purpose, once it came back, dude, I was full life again.
Yeah, you got to find your
Yep.
why.
Yep.
Your why, your purpose. You call it what you want, but you need that in life
Yep.
because as human beings, we desire that. We don't realize we desire it
Yep.
sometimes. You know, everybody's like, oh, I just want to sit on the beach and have a cocktail and whatever. Yeah, you do
Mm.
that for a week and then you're like, this is boring. I'm sitting and looking at the same sand, and you know,
Yeah.
like you need a purpose. If
Yep.
you were sailing on the water next to the beach or doing something else, or
Yep.
hey, let's get a jet ski. So yeah, you need purpose and why. So I also want to get into teammates and tribes. You know, who you surround yourself with. I think
Yep.
your wife, you know, she's amazing, staying by you and helping you. I know she was a foundation for a lot of your recovery.
Yes.
But let's talk about how having the right people around you can make a giant difference. Because when we work together, we discussed that a little
Yeah.
bit. And I think you get it 100%. You got the asset mindset, you apply it in life. And it's the Millsap mindset too, because the truth is the truth.
Yeah.
But let's talk about tribe and teammates you're around.
I mean, again, if there's if there's five drinkers that you're hanging out with, you'll be the sixth. You know, if there's five drug addicts, you'll be the sixth. If there's five thieves, like you'll be the sixth. It all just depends on who you surround yourself with, and if you surround yourself with, you know, positive people, you surround yourself with, you know, goal oriented and or successful people, you're going to become goal driven. You're going to become successful. You're going to become motivated and driven to be how they are, if not better. You hang out with negative people. I don't care who you are. You could be the most positive dude in the world. You hang out with a few negative people, you're going to start getting glimpses of the negativity. And you're going to start saying, oh, man, tired today, or I don't feel like doing this today, versus how you used to be like, oh, it doesn't matter, dude. I'm tired, but let's go. You know, it was, I don't want to do it. Like you're going to start getting how they are versus how you used to be hanging around the positive people. So for me, it's when you surround yourself with the right people, you surround yourself with the right teammates. Even if you have bad teammates, you try to stay clear of as much as you can, even though you have to be around them sometimes, but you can still let some things they say in and then out and focus on you, and or you try to better them. You know, like, dude, like it's not that bad. Like stop complaining, stop whining, like stop being a bitch, like you're fine. You know, like, do we get to ride dirt bikes for a freaking living? People would die to have this job. Like, shut up. You know, I wish someone would have done that to me. But, you know, but I was always around. I had, you know, a few positive teammates. I might have been the negative one, but I was better than they were. So I could be, you know, but that doesn't give me the pass. You know what I mean? I could have been way better had I had their attitude, had I had their mindset of being the, you know, the positive one. And like I said, no matter who you're around, like eventually you'll start to lean that way. And then when I hired my old riding coach, he was always pretty positive about things. You know, he wasn't too negative about anything, but he was very, very crystal clear about what had to get done, didn't matter. And I kind of morphed into that to where I stopped being so negative. I stopped being, you know, who I was. I stopped complaining so much, and it started changing the dynamics of my life. My teammates, you know, everyone became closer because everyone was starting to be more positive. The whole team, the people who I worked with, who were, you know, my mechanic, my team manager, my crew chief, everyone was starting to have that positive uplifting and being, you know, just vibing everywhere. And it's like, okay, so now you understand what it means and what it's like to have a positive group of people versus a negative group of people, and being around successful and driven and, you know, passionate people versus ones that just don't care, you know, and that to me is, like I said, dude, you start hanging out with good people, you're going to be one of those good people. You're going to be one of those successful people. You're going to have that drive. You know, if you call me every morning that you're going to the gym, I'm going to end up one day going to the gym. I'm not going to stop. You know, like it's just, if I hang out with someone that just lays in bed, I'm going to lay in bed. You know, my wife gets up in the morning and she goes out and works out. It makes me feel like a piece of crap. So I want to get up and I want to go. You know,
She's out there taking a walk and I'm being a lazy bum just laying under this blanket. I can't have my wife showing me up.
Exactly. So, and you know, and it's like, dude, like I gotta go hang out with this chick in the summertime. Like I gotta look decent, you know? So it's always that who you hang out with and what you let, you know, distract you or motivate you and push you along. And I think a lot of that has to do with the people that you surround yourself with. So that's, you know, I think there's a lot in that tribe teammate situation. But again, if I hung out with you every day, like I'm hanging out with someone with a positive mindset, like we're going to make shit happen.
Oh yeah, we are right now,
Yeah,
brother.
so
We're
that's what I'm
already
saying.
doing
Like
it.
we're gonna make shit happen. Where if you hang out with someone who doesn't have the drive, doesn't have the passion, doesn't have the motivation, doesn't have, is very negative, should I say? Dude, you're not gonna get anything. You're gonna be trying to drag them along with you, versus just cutting the dead weight, and then boom, you're
Yep.
gonna slingshot your way back up to where you need to be. Versus because you're dragging the weight along with you the whole time, and you can't do that. You can't do that if you want to succeed.
Yeah, it's going to stress you out. You're going
Yep.
to have all kinds of problems.
Correct.
I share a concept in my book about a sponge.
Yep.
Like we're human beings, we're all a sponge. So whatever we're surrounded with, we absorb.
Yep.
And if you're dirty, and been in muddy water for a while, you suck up all that filth
Mm-hmm.
and that dirt.
Yep.
But it's weird because when you take that sponge out of like dirty water
Mm-hmm.
and you put it in clean water and you squeeze it a few times and it starts getting clean, and then at the point where it gets clean, you could take that sponge that's now clean and drop it in a muddy puddle. It's not going to suck up as much dirt. Why? Because it's already saturated with goodness.
Yep.
So that's kind of what happens in life. When you already have that positivity, you kind of can repel that dirt. So if you do get around somebody that's negative,
Yeah.
or just having that victim mentality or whatever it is they have that's trying to bring you down, well, guess what? Now you're more resistant because you've been around positive people,
Correct.
people that are clean and healthy and doing good things. So you're vibing on that energy instead. So I think that's so important for our listeners and people
Yeah.
we work with that we coach and whatnot to understand that.
Yeah. No,
You
100%.
really need to surround yourself with good people. It's so important. So, can you share a story that you shared a little bit? You were telling me about the bike. There was I don't know if we're going to say any names or make or model, but you were talking about like you got on a team and people were complaining and whining about the bike, like, oh, this bike's a piece of crap, and then everybody started believing it and like arguing and whatnot, something like that.
Just telling you just right now.
No, you told me before.
Oh,
I want you
oh.
to share that story with the listeners.
There's been a lot of those.
Well, then pick one.
I mean, if you go back to, I would say my second year pro, the bike that I rode was one of the two worst bikes I ever got to ride. The second worst bike I would say was in 2009, but 2005 was by far one of the worst bikes at that time in that era. And it was breaking constantly, and everyone was always trying to figure out what was going on with it. They were blaming me for it. They were blaming the bike. They were blaming, the vendors. They were blaming, this person, that person. And then, they would get to the point where they're being so negative about it. And, like, we need to stop riding this one. We got to figure out something else. I'm like, just give me the bike, give me what I want, and let's go. I was 17 years old at the time. And they finally, I went through 3 motors a day at one point because they kept breaking, which is usually you get about, 15 to 20 hours out of a motor. I was going through 3 a day at some points, which is it's not very good with the confidence because you don't trust the bike. Like, it's going to blow up on the face of the jump. And like, that's not a good thing to happen.
No, it's not.
No. So,
Ouch, to say the least.
very much so. And, it got to the point to where they started just sending the motors. They were making how I wanted. They got my suspension how I wanted. They got the bike how I wanted. It wasn't the best bike, but like I'm having such a good time, like doing it. Like I'm young. I'm going fast. Like let's go. And then I went out the first race and I won. And then it went from maybe the bike isn't so bad, but like the bike was still bad. Don't get me wrong, the bike was still bad, but everyone's attitude changed towards it. And we almost won the championship that year. I lost it due to some kid hitting me, midway through the season, and I didn't pay attention to what I was doing because I was young and dumb, and I went around the finish line one lap on accident to go to the mechanics area because my bike was all bent up. Had I crossed the finish line, that would have given me the championship.
Wow.
I would have been in the points that I've been at it, and there was only like 3 rounds to go. It would have been fine. But the whole vibe of the team changed when we started winning on a bike that we couldn't keep together. And then, you go into 2009 where the bike is one of the worst bikes I think ever made. Um, and it was a Honda, 450, and there was I think four of us that were on the team, and three of us hated it. One of them had good attitude about it, and it made it really tough because everyone hated it. And the vibe on that team never really changed that much until 2010. So it took a long time for people to start realizing, like, okay, let's get going, let's get going. But dude, there's so many stories with bad bikes and bad vibes and bad teams and bad teammates. Um, yeah, it's 2013 was the best year that I had. I would say that all year long, and they doubted me for a while, and started realizing, like, okay, like he knows what he's talking about, he knows what he's doing. My mechanic is still one of my best friends to this day. Um,
Nice.
he runs the Triumph team in Atlanta, and but we still talk constantly when he does answer the phone. But it's one of those things that after they stopped questioning me and they started believing in me, that's when we started excelling. That's when the team started, you know, coming up to the top, and it became a huge team. It became, a very well-known team. Everyone wanted to be on that team because they saw what it could do to somebody, that came off of, I would say, not so good to being one of the best at the time. So there's just my whole career is like this, man.
Yeah, it's
It's
life, man.
fun.
It's the
Yeah.
struggle and trials
Yeah.
of life, and that's what I want listeners and people to
Yeah.
realize with you and your story. You've been amazingly successful, one of the most winning motocross racers,
An
in
amateur.
history.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you've had trouble and struggles.
Yep.
Myself, I've had struggles and trouble. And you listeners out there, you're not alone. You're
Yeah.
a human being. You're going to struggle. It's part
Yeah.
of life.
It's not all
It's how
rainbows and
you deal with
butterflies.
it. Yeah. Yeah, there's going to be a tornado, there's going to be a
Yeah.
blizzard, there's going to be whatever. But yeah, there'll be a sunny day too.
Yeah.
Perfectly calm water happens. So just enjoy the ride and stay positive. That's what it comes down to. So I want to get into a little bit too about you now working with the up and coming generation.
Yeah.
Knowing all these life lessons you have now, what are you seeing for struggles for them? And then what are you trying to teach them?
Struggles for me that it's pretty easy is giving up. Um, it's really all mental for most of the guys that I work with. Um, they like to give in when it gets tough, versus pushing through the adversity, pushing through. You feel a little bit of pain, not pain like as in like ouch pain, but like your arms are burning, your shoulders are burning, your heart rate's at 195, and you are literally in the red zone for now 25, 30 minutes, and you only have 5 laps left, but you don't think you can go that distance, or if you're around a lot of guys that shouldn't be on the track, because we ride public track, so there are a lot of guys that are slow or whatnot, always in the way, but they let those guys dictate how their time on the track is going to be. Because if we do a 35-minute moto, which is we're out there for 35 minutes straight, um, and we're out there with 50 other guys, I don't care who's out there. You do your moto the best you possibly can, and you don't give up. You don't let someone that's getting in your way dictate your mindset of how you're going to finish or how the whole moto is going to be. I see a lot of that. I see a lot of giving into the social media, giving into just thinking that they're on top of the world. You know what I mean? And getting a little bit of humble pie, but and not listening. That's something that I feel like I have done my whole life, is not listen when I should have in my career. And recently he wasn't listening. One of the guys I was training with wasn't listening for a while. Wasn't listening. And a few weekends ago, we sat down. He's like, "What am I doing?" And I said, "This." Um, and he was
Humble
like, "Dude,"
pie.
"I know I wasn't listening. I was being stubborn." And I'm like, "Dude, like, yeah." And I'm like, "Unfortunately for you, like, I kept asking you all these questions. I kept trying to see if you needed, anything else. And you kept saying, no, no, no." I'm like, "You let the stress of what you claimed wasn't bothering you, rule you, and then you thought you were on top of the world. Um, I said I had to let you fall a little bit for you to come back to start listening, because no matter who was around you, no matter what you were doing, you weren't going to listen. And he agreed. He goes, dude, I know I wouldn't listen to anybody, but now it's he's the last 3 weeks he's been on fire with everything, and it's like, what, maybe I think that possibly might be the last time that he needs it, because that's twice and since I started working with him that he's done it. Um, and this one was a hard wake up call. The other kids that I work with, just I have that they give in when it gets a little bit tough, and whether they where they're training, or if they're a little windy, or roads are rough, or having a bad day, or there's too many people on the track's too rough, track too smooth, their bike's not feeling good. It's like, it's all these things, I didn't sleep enough, or I sat in traffic. It's like, dude, I don't care. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm not here for that. I'm here for you to get better. If you don't want to get better, the truck's there, you can go home. Like, I don't need that mindset around the guys that are here to actually get better, that are here to perform, that are here to give it their all. And if you go on that track with me, or not on the track with me, like I'm watching you, but if you're on that track and you give up, it's not gonna be fun for you. Like, I don't deal with that stuff, man. I travel too much for them. I literally go around and, 16 hour drive, 16 hours a week sometimes for these guys. And if you're going to give up on me, then I'll give up on you. How's that going to feel? I'm not going to answer your phone calls. I'm not going to show up to the track. You're going to be wondering what's going on. That's what I'm doing every time you don't show up when you ride. I'm wondering what I'm doing here. What are you doing? And it's just, it's a lot, man. It makes my own brain hurt.
Well, I'm glad you're doing that, though. People need that tough love. They need accountability.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't realize accountability and how important that is.
Yeah.
And taking ownership of the things. Like you talked about, oh, the track's this, or oh, this happened, or oh, I was stuck in traffic, so I was sitting and, my body was tight, or whatever. Like, excuses. Like, you got to get rid of the excuses. You have to. And I love that you're able to teach these guys and have that mentorship, that style that gives them the tough love. Because I think a lot of people right now, I mean, you hear people talk about, oh, the trophy generation. Everybody gets a trophy. Everybody's, wonderful. No, in life, there's winners and there's losers.
Yeah.
Fact. Like, that's just the way it is. So what separates them? Their mindset, their work ethic, people they surround themselves with. Do they let other people interfere? And I think it's amazing what you're doing. It really is.
I appreciate that.
That next generation is very blessed and lucky to have you.
Thank you.
They really are.
The no excuses, and that's a big one for me. It's I don't care. I think the best thing, it was in, I would say, December of last year. We were at the end of boot camp. Our boot camp is when we're building base. So we're just doing moto. Like, there's no breaks. It's literally 2 to 3 motos every single day. And in December, we start to switch it, and we go into, speed work and technique, and the motos start, like, you start your moto at your sprint lap time. So if you do 1 lap sprint as fast as you can, you have to be within, I think, 3 or 4 tenths of what I did from that lap time to start your 20-minute moto or 15-minute moto for the first 4 laps. If you weren't, you start the moto over. I don't care if there was 2 guys doing it. I don't care if one does it and the other one doesn't. Like, if he's still going, guess what? You have to start over. It does not matter to me. I don't care. I could be out there. When he's done, he'll go back and he'll get a drink. He's a big boy. Like, I'll still be out here with you until you're done. Like, we're not leaving until you're done. I'm like, if you sandbag your sprint lap and you do this first lap of the moto and you're faster, now your new time is your first lap. And so he did that exact thing. He was faster in the first lap of the moto. So now his time dropped. And the second lap, he didn't hit it. So we made him start over. And he was yelling. I'm like, I don't care, go. So he started over. He didn't hit it again. He came back yelling. And it took him 3 times to do it. But when we were done, I still, to this day, it's still one of my favorite comments. He's like, dude, like, I was mother effing you, yelling at you. And he's like, you looked through my soul. And he's like, you didn't care. And I'm like, why would I? Like, I don't care. You know, I don't care how mad you are. You know, the fact that he's like, you look through my soul. I about died. I'm like, yeah, dude, like, you think I don't care. I used to have to do this same stuff when I was working with the guy that I hired, Ezra Lusk. And I got so mad at him. I went back to my truck. I threw the bike on the stand. I sat there, I took all my stuff off, and I let them sit out there in the track, and they weren't coming back. I'm like, fuck, they're not coming back. I'm like, they're not coming back. Like, why aren't they coming back? Like, and they just sat there. They literally sat there. I'm like, fuck. I got dressed again. I got my bike. And I went out, and I had to do it. You know, and like, dude, there's these memories that are still embedded in me that, you know, I think that one of you look through my soul is gonna be with me forever. Like, that was great. That was the best comment I think I've ever heard. But just things like that, you know, that he didn't care that I was done, like that I wanted to be done. He didn't care. He was sitting out there. And guess what? They had the keys to the truck. I wasn't going anywhere. So it's, you know, it is what it is. And that's kind of how I am with my guys.
No, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So I think your mentorship, your leadership style, and I think it's ironic. There's definitely, you know, oh, I don't care. No, you actually do care. You don't care when you're not supposed to care, but
Yeah.
it's because you do care. You got a great heart, man. And I love how you're teaching these kids, you know, the mindset that you've grown and you've developed through the years, that Millsap mindset of being able to be positive, surrounding yourself with good people, and taking ownership and knowing to work.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to get into just a cool story right now. So tell me about your favorite or your best race, like that day that you were just floating on cloud nine. I'm sure you've had a few because you've won multiple races.
Yeah.
But there was that one time that really stands out that if you could relive that race or do that moto again, what would it be and when was it?
It was a race that I didn't even win. And it was in 2013, and it was the last race of the season. No, sorry, the second to last race of the season. It was in Salt Lake City. And there was 3 of us going for the championship that year, realistically. There was myself, Ryan Villapoto, and Ryan Dungey. We were the 3 main guys that year. And I got a bad start. I had a bad start to that moto. And this is when it was 20 laps. And we're in altitude, let alone, like, we're pretty high in altitude. Villapoto, I think, gets the whole shot, who won the championship that night. But he got the whole shot. And Dungey was, I think, Ryan Dungey was 3rd, who's also multi-time champion. And I was 6th or 7th. I passed all the way up and I caught up to Villapoto, who was winning. And Dungey followed me. So then it was Ryan Villapoto, myself, and Dungey. This is on lap 2. We passed everybody. So now it's the 3 of us for the next 18 laps. We were within like 1.5 seconds for 18 laps, all 3 of us. And like, if I would catch a little bit, like he would, like he'd inch away, like he had to pick it up. I pick it up, and Dungey would pick it up. It got to the point to where after the last few laps, like I'm like starting to get delusional because my heart rate is so high. Like I'm having to talk myself through, like, okay, this section's coming up. Like I got to do this in this section because it's my brain is starting to get, you know, discombobulated realistically. And at the end of the race, you know, it was cool because, you know, I literally was with, you know, both those guys I think have 4 championships in that class in Supercross each. So they have way more than I do. But the fact that I was running with them, they couldn't break me. I ended up passing one of them, and I lasted the whole time, which I've never been one to be in shape. So for me to last the whole time in between the 2 best dudes to have really, you know, 2 of the best dudes to ever do it, that to me was one of the coolest races because it's still, you know, I still remember it as in like, dude, like we were on it. Like we lapped so far up into the field. There was no one near us. It was us 3 and it was just such a good race. Like I said, you know, the leader, myself and Dungey, I think we were all within a 1.5 seconds for 18 laps.
That's incredible.
That to me was probably one of one of the best races that I physically did. Most memorable race, I would say that one, if not the one I won that year, the first one I won that year in Anaheim won, just because it was a cool battle with an old friend. Ended up winning it, but I would say Salt Lake is probably one of the most memorable ones that I have.
I love that. And that, for anyone out there, you notice he didn't win
Yeah,
that one. And
yeah,
that was his most memorable.
yeah,
Why? Because the people he was around. And
yeah.
I know all three of you were pushing each other. Those 18 laps, I can't imagine. Like, you guys must have had like the fastest times
It
pretty much
was
ever,
it was
because each one of
insane.
you
Yeah,
is pushing each other and like, all right, I got to go. And that
yeah.
competitive edge, like, that must have been a heck of a race to
I think
watch.
the
I'm going to have to
greatest
see
thing,
if I can find that.
2013 Salt Lake City. It
Uh,
was a fabulous race. But I think what was cool is Ryan Dudgy, who I beat that race. I beat that year too overall. Um, he was like, I I only know it, and because he's still a friend. Like I see him all the time,
yeah.
and I bring it up to him all the time. I'm like, dude, I remember when when you had to go find a new trainer because you said that Davi Millsaps is better than you. That there's an issue. so
Oh,
so like like dude, that's what I was known for. But he couldn't crack me. I wasn't, and we were in altitude, let alone anything. So I should have been popped, early off in the race. But dude, I didn't win, no, but we gave Villapoto a big run for his money. And it was so cool to, like I said, I was one of the best as an amateur, one of the best in my era, just maybe not winning so much, but I was still, one of the top dudes my whole career. But that to me was a statement that I was the top dude. You know what I mean? No matter if I won or lost, like if I got second, but I was still a top dude. And that to me it meant a lot.
no, I get that
Yeah.
sentiment exactly. Because in special forces, when you look to your left, you look to your right, and you see the men you're with, you're like,
Yeah.
damn,
Yeah.
I'm here with these guys like
Yeah.
that. I can sense that and relate so
Yeah.
much, like riding and being like, you're looking and you're like, holy shit, I'm rolling with these guys. Like,
Yeah.
this is a special moment and a
Yeah.
special thing. That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. I think
No, of
that's a very
course.
powerful story for people to understand, because we get so focused on winning
Yeah.
sometimes, and that's where people say, like, oh, don't worry about the destination, enjoy the journey.
No, that was a
And
good journey,
that's,
man.
yeah, that right there, that's a testimonial to that.
And it was so fun while I was doing it too. Like I was in so much pain. Let me tell you, I was in so much pain. I was struggling so bad. I'm like, dude, another lap, another lap, another lap. But just to like, I still get goosebumps thinking about it. It was
Ah,
such a fun race. It was such a badass. When I bring it up to Dungy, still he's like, dude, that was such a sick race. Like it was because there's not really been a race like that too much, like in our era. To where all three guys were together the whole entire time. It's usually one breaks away or
mhm.
two break away, but all three of the top guys not even breaking within 2 seconds dude, it was just so much fun. And when you say enjoy the journey, like even if I didn't get to the top that year, the journey that I had, it was unbelievable.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. And hey, everybody listening right now, please take a moment to pause and go into the description and make sure you check out Davey and what he's doing. Give him a follow on Instagram, check up Millsap Mindset, and see what he's doing. Because let me tell you, you've heard some of his stories. This guy's got his mind right. It's taken a while, but he's there and he's done it. And,
Yeah.
that's the thing, because some people never do it.
Yeah.
And you're doing amazing, brother. I'm so blessed to have you in my circle, asset mindset teammate, being a
Thank you.
friend, all the things. And also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow the Asset Mindset podcast. You can find us anywhere you find your podcasts, on YouTube, Spotify, wherever it may be. And share it with someone that you think would enjoy the asset mindset. So, getting back here, the one thing I like to kind of do, and we've touched on this a lot because you're excellent at explaining things, is what would you do now to go back and tell yourself and educate yourself when you were younger? Like all this experience, because you said, oh, I wish I had this mindset, then that I have now. So what would be the top 3 things that you'd like, hey, listen up, Davy, this is what you need or what you should be doing?
A good one. Um, I'm gonna put a plug in. I wish
Do it.
what are we 2025? So
Yeah.
19 20 no, it's shoot. Dang, 21 years ago. I wish you would have wrote your book. Um, no, it's I would say the the drive. Like I had drive and then let it fade. I needed someone that would be like, dude, stop. Stop whining, stop complaining, get going. Um, then like that kind of was good. I was okay there. But I think the biggest change in my career, Daniel, I think the biggest change is who I surrounded myself with. And it
Mm.
wasn't for the best. I surrounded myself. My mom and I had like I say separation, not like obviously we're not married, but we went different. She was my trainer. Like I rode, with her every single day. Like she was the one that was doing everything for me, and we had a falling out, and I went my own way at 19 years old, and I surrounded myself with the wrong people who was there for because I was making money and I was paying them, and I even tell some of my good friends to this day, and even my old bosses that I see at the races still. I'm like, dude, why didn't you fucking grab me by the neck and say stop? And they're like, there was nothing we would have done that would have changed how you were. I'm like, bullcrap, you didn't try. Like you didn't try. Because when I look back now, like there's a lot of people that I surrounded myself with that if I didn't want to ride that day, if I went to track, oh, I don't feel good. Okay, let's go home. Like, they didn't care. They were yes men. And if I didn't want to go for a bike ride, if I didn't want to go to the gym, if I didn't want to do something, okay, no worries. Like you can do it tomorrow. There was always tomorrow. And in reality, there's not. Like there's always tomorrow ended 8 years ago with my career, or whatever, I don't even know, 8, 9 years ago, whatever it is. And so those are two things, which is surround yourself with the right people. Because I think hands down, that one is what led my career down a path that took me a long time to crawl out of. And then when I hired Ezra Lusk and got myself around that, I'll put it this way, he was so good to be around. He's still one of my best friends, by the way. He met the guy that I was telling you about that I surrounded myself with. When he met him for the first time, he said, "You ever bring him around again, I quit." Within 5 minutes of knowing this dude, you ever bring him around again, I quit. And I'm like, done. Like, I agree. I'll quit.
Got it.
And I would say the last one, honestly, for me would just be finding that passion and drive and purpose again. I love dirt bikes. I love riding. I did it for 27 years of my life. When I retired, I was 29 years old. At that time, I had done it for 20. I retired at 30. Sorry, I did it for 27 years. I was 30 years old when I retired. Um, so it's one of those things that I did it for so long. You kind of get like a robot. You kind of just do it. You just get into this flow. And the last year that when I hit my head and I ended my career, I had that mindset switch of I'm doing everything I can. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's painful. I don't care if it sucks. I don't care if it's something that no one likes. I'm doing whatever I'm told I need to do, and whatever I know I need to do, I'm doing it, putting everything I have into it. The last year, and when I did that switch, dude, my world got so good. My life got so good. I was enjoying life. I was on top of the world, man. Like cycling, whenever you wanted to go, I would go. Like it didn't matter how far we were going, didn't matter how hard it was. If I had to swim, if I had to go to the gym, if I had to do all sorts of laps on the dirt bike, like I was loving every single minute of it. And I'd go home and I'd just be like, yeah, like loving it. Like that switch for me is like, man, like I wish I would have done that so long ago. Of just, dude, you got realistically on average a 12 to 14, 12 to 15 year career in this sport. Like if that's a long time, but
Oh yeah.
realistically, like that's what you have. Shut up and grind and put everything you have into it because, dude, when it's gone, it's gone. Like there's no going back. I look at pictures nowadays and I'm like, dude, like I wish I could go back. Like and it bothers me, and that's a regret that I have, and I'll always have it. Is knowing what it was like to do that stuff, but at least I did it. I can look back now and be like, dude, I put so much into it. At this point, I knew what that felt like, but it also sucks because now I know what it's like, and I wish I would have done it so long ago. So that's a double-edged sword on that one.
Yeah.
But I feel like those things for me, just like, if you want to call it the asset mindset, you want to call it the Millsaps mindset, you call it whatever mindset you want. But at that time, for me, it was 2017, that I literally dumped everything I had into it, but I did it with passion. I did it with drive. I did it with purpose, and I did it with positivity. And I think that combination, man, is it was a recipe for greatness. I just never got a chance to show it. But who I surrounded myself with at that time was really good. My mental strength, my mental side was really good. And, I had a wife that was behind me, and I had two kids that were behind me. And, yeah, man, I didn't complain very much at that time. And I think that's why.
Good. Good.
I
And
would,
you
so you go
shouldn't.
back to like, that's what I wish I could have. Well, I could tell myself when I was, 16, 17, 18 years old, or actually more so 19, because that's when I started going off the deep end.
Yeah, you
19, man, I
got a
knew the
little too
world.
much freedom and a little cocky, young, testosterone's going. You're the man, you're the
Yeah.
badass. You know it all. You got the answers. You're making money. Like,
Hmm.
don't tell me. I know what I'm doing. Look at me. Yeah.
And I never thought it was going to end,
Yeah.
and let me tell you, it did. And I didn't think it was going to be as tough as it was. Like, I don't have the passion or the drive to go ride a dirt bike right now. I just don't, because I know, sometimes I can ride, sometimes I can't with how my head is. Like, it feels weird. So I get that. But dude, it's one of those things that it was my life. Like, I'll always miss riding a dirt bike. I'll always miss racing. I'll always miss the competition. I'll always miss lining up on the gate and having that purpose of, dude, I gotta go. Um, but that's where I think, like I said, I'm valuable because of all the bullshit I've been through myself, all the stuff I put myself through, all the stuff I didn't have to go through that I did anyway. Um, at such a young age, you know, people stealing everything from me and losing everything and gaining everything back, and just a whole, you go through you weather the storm realistically, and like your analogy, that you brought up. But for me, it's, you look at all the wildfires and the black, but guess what comes after that, dude? It's so green, it's crazy, and that's kind of how I looked at life for a long time. Was I'm being burned right now, but like I'm going to be green again. I'm going to come back out on top again. I'm going to weather the storm again. That's just, dude, it's been a long 37 years. I promise you that.
I believe it. And you briefly touched on, and I think you have a lot of value here with overcoming physical
Hmm.
difficulties.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit for listeners that maybe, they're struggling, they just had, I don't know, back surgery, hip surgery, or, they got in a car accident and broke their neck or whatever it may be. What was able or what were you able to do to push yourself to recover? And what have you learned, I guess, through recovery, with everything and all the surgeries you've had?
It's funny you bring up a back surgery and car accident and stuff. I had back surgery 8 weeks ago, and I got in a car accident yesterday. So it's kind of it's kind of funny you bring those up. I
Lord
wasn't
works in mysterious
I
ways.
wasn't driving, by the way. And I was sitting in the passenger seat when we got hit. But it, for me, whether it be, like I said, I've had 36 surgeries, something like that. Dude, it's never fun having surgery. It's never fun being hurt. It's never fun having to go. I didn't do a whole lot of rehab because I did it on my own. Because I knew it had to get done. I knew what needed to get done, and I have to walk again, or I have to bend my elbow again, or I have to bend my knee again, or right now it's my back because I literally had back surgery 8 weeks ago, so I'm still trying to get my mobility back. But just knowing that if you get through that pain of recovery, which is getting through the scar tissue and breaking all that stuff up again, and which, dude, I'm sorry, scar tissue, that sucks. And getting through it and pushing through that little bit of pain, the other side of it is so nice. You know, you get to be yourself again. And the faster you do it to a reasonable extent, the faster you get back. You know, like when I did my, my first ACL, I was 12 years old. I had to have knee surgery at 12. I was back on dirt bike in 2 months, and I had full accelerated rehab. I was bending my knee within a few weeks, like fully bending my knee within a few weeks. I was in tears. I was in full tears every day. But I look back, dude, that was 23 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, I don't remember that pain. Like, I can think of the pain, but I don't feel it. Tomorrow I'm not going to notice the pain that I felt today, realistically. That's how I think. That's how I'm always looking at it, is like, I got to get through it, and then as you go down the road, dude, you don't even pay attention. Like, you'll be living your life normal. Oh, crap. It doesn't even hurt anymore. Like, you don't even realize it doesn't hurt. And it's because you take your mind off of it. You switch your mindset from so consumed with the pain or so consumed with whatever that it is, you start focusing on other things and it disappears. Like, you get it out of your head. I feel like pain is a lot to do with where you're at mentally. And everyone's like, oh, I have a high, pain threshold. Okay, well, it's cool. But I guarantee, like, it still hurts. Like, yeah, dude, I can ride with 2 broken wrists all year long. It still hurts. But that was in 2017. That was so many years ago. Like, I had double wrist surgery right after that. And they still hurt, but it's not like I don't look back now and go, man, like, whew, that was so painful. Like, no, I look back and go, man, like, I made it through that year. Like, that was sick. I always try to switch it to where I don't think about it anymore. I try to just exclude it from my head and push through the pain, because no matter what you do, no matter how old you are, if you've had as many surgeries as I've had, or if you've jumped out of planes as much as you have and hit the ground as hard as you have, dude, you're going to have pain. Are you going to let it stop you every single day, though? No, dude, you got to move forward. You got to move on. You got to keep going past it, because no matter what, if you're going to let the pain slow you down, what else are you going to let slow you down? Everything.
No, I love it. I love it, man. I love your mindset. This is awesome. Great episode. Again, thank you for coming on the Asset Mindset Podcast, brother. Davy, you're amazing.
Thank you.
Find Davy out there. Follow him. He's doing wonderful things. He's a great coach, mentor. Check out Millsap Mindset. And please share this episode with someone you know who needs to hear it and is struggling with pain or whatever else they're struggling with. And also give us a like, follow, and please subscribe to the Asset Mindset Podcast. And don't forget, no matter what it is you're doing, whatever you're facing, you can do it and own your power.